Hi, my name is Pastor John Schmidt. I want to thank you for checking out this free preview for this sermon series that we're calling Understanding a Better Way. Let's talk about love, sex, and dating. And actually, this series is a series that it sounds like it's very much for people who aren't married, but it really is about marriage and marriage relationships. It really is talking about the relationships that are the most important relationships that God calls to us to as human relationships, the relationship between a man and a woman. This is a 6-part series. And we really talk about, over the 6 parts, in week 1, we talk about really the right person myth, kind of really looking at it from a world perspective of addressing what the world says, if you find the right person, you'll be able to live happily ever after. And really looking at that from the standpoint of that is not a guarantee for happiness, that you need God's and God's principles in your life to really have happiness. Week number 2, we talk about what you see so often, which is dependency or codependency in relationships, where you see relationships that take on an unhealthy tone, and how you can keep yourself from either going into that kind of relationship, or how to address that kind of relational obstacle that you may have in your own relationship, or even in relationships of friends, your children, your grandchildren. This series is a series that really is designed, no matter whether you're single again, married again, no matter whether you're a teenager or you're in your 80s. Week number 3, we talk about becoming the right person, of what it really means to become the right person for that right person that may be out there for you. And then week number 4, we go into what true love is, really pulling apart 1 Corinthians 13 and looking at what that chapter has to tell us about how we apply that. Week number 5, we really address the whole issue of masculinity in our culture, and how we are to look at women, and women are to look at themselves in culture. And then week number 6, I call The Talk. And you may be sitting there going, do you mean the talk? And yes, I am talking about the talk. That awkward 15-minute conversation that you have with your 6th grader or middle schooler or whatever age that you have them, and really getting into some things that probably we as parents don't usually talk about, and we don't usually share with our kids. And so again, this whole series is a very much a PG rated series. There isn't anything here that is not God honoring. So you don't have to be worried about that. I'm going to show you a preview of the first of this teaching series, so that you have an opportunity just to kind of get a little bit of the flavor as to what direction this series goes. And then after you watch that preview, I'll be back with you in a minute just to tell you about how you can order this. Welcome to this first session on us talking about love, sex, and dating. I want to commend the leadership, the church, for being willing to address this subject in this kind of forum. Sex is one of those things that so often, well, because of what's happening out in the world, we just kind of leave it out in the world. But I want to thank you and commend you for your willingness to address a topic that sometimes is ignored pretty often within the church, and to talk about it in a healthy way, to talk about it with a God perspective towards this. So often when we talk about these kinds of issues, we want to immediately get into the thou shalts and thou shalt nots, and for the most part, people in the world immediately turn us off. You just don't understand. Oh, you're behind the times. Oh, you're old-fashioned. So I want to talk about this subject using some life observations and some truths from God's Word. Because when we talk about sex, well, it was God's idea. He's the one who invented it. So often we look at these kind of discussions, and, well, we don't really know where to begin. And for us, as we're sitting there listening to this, we may be in a position where we go, this just doesn't apply to me. I am so far past the dating years. I've been married for so long. I'm getting older, whatever it may be. But I want to encourage you for this session, for these sessions coming up,
to listen to the truths that are going to be expressed and listen for where they intersect with your life, because there will be things that intersect with your life. I don't need to mention the relentless march towards the sexualization of everything in our society. You look at almost any show that's on TV right now, especially any sitcom or any regular show like that, and sexual innuendo, sexual references are rampant all over the place. In fact, it's become so common that it's easy for us to kind of become numb to it. But there's also another cultural current that underlies not just the sexualization cultural current, but it underlies so often what we see and what we do and what we read. And it's been around since the beginning of time. It's the good old-fashioned quote, "and they lived happily ever after." In fact, that's what a lot of chick flicks are, right? They lived happily ever after. And as we look at this and we start to look at so much of what's going on out there with matchmaking services, with reality TV shows, they are designed to help us to navigate these relational options that are out there so we can live happily ever after. And as you have this pull in culture towards this unencumbered, consequent-free sex, and the pull on the other side of having longer-term relationships where you can live happily ever after, well, you kind of find that these things, which seem to be almost polar opposites, well, what's a girl to do? So as we talk about this, I'm not going to spend much time talking about why things are the way they are, but I want to talk about how to help you navigate the way things are. So I'm going to share some truths, some observations, and some of these are just from years of counseling with couples. Some of these are based upon truths, and especially as we get into some subsequent weeks here, are based upon truths from God's Word. But let me just start off and just say right up front that sex and sexuality are like fire. It's good within its confines, but when it gets out of its confines, it can become destructive. A campfire is good when it's within the pit, but when it spreads to the forest around, well, it wreaks havoc and disaster. And sex is like that. And when we talk about this, outside of its proper context, it can be very destructive. But because sex is usually part of long-term relationships, we're going to talk about it. But we're going to talk about it within a larger context than just a single event or even a single relationship. Why? Because as much as culture tries to separate our sexual experiences from the rest of our lives, it can't be done.
This series is $750, and it's $125 a week. And what we provide for you is not only do we provide you MP4 teaching videos, we provide you full sermon notes. We also provide you small group questions to go with this, as well as a training guide to go with that. And I'm also available for up to an hour of free consultation for you to be able to look at this and say, how can we utilize this? Not only for a teaching on a Sunday morning, but maybe utilizing it to start new kinds of small groups, utilize it in our Sunday school, utilize it to kind of re-energize and revitalize things, maybe even use it in a outreach type program for youth. And so there's all sorts of different ways, and it's the cost is $750, which actually, if you were to go out and get Pulpit Supply, most churches are paying $100 to $200 per week minimum for that. So this not only includes that, but also includes something to support an entire Sunday school or small group program. To order this, you can email me at pastorjohnhelena@gmail.com, or you can check out our website at hopeconnects.org. Thank you for checking this out.